Hey, this is Rick, and welcome to another Inwyt Walkabout. We've been talking about the idea of learning to look, and we talked a little bit about the power of words. And I wanted to expand a little bit on the power of the words that we use, and particularly as it relates to assumptions. So I want to tell you another story about a time, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when I took my son to a training course on how to use anti-lock brakes. He had just gotten his driver's license, and this was sort of an additional training that not only was good for him, but also good for me as far as insurance rates were concerned. So we went to the training site, and there were a bunch of other kids there with their parents. And one of the things that struck me when I was there was one kid whose father showed up wearing basically a full complement of Trump regalia. He had a Trump hat, he had a MAGA t-shirt, and just really living the part of being a Trump supporter. And I didn't really have any gut reaction to it other than noticing sort of a very demonstrable representation of his point of view, and just kind of left it at that. And they started going through their classroom training a little bit, the kids, and then we had to go outside because they were getting into cars to actually test and practice using anti-lock brakes. And I was standing on the balcony, watching my son in the car, and this father, who I just described, kind of came next to me, and was just basically sharing the view of our kids in the car. And we just started talking casually. Wasn't about politics, wasn't about anything. We were just getting to know each other. And within a pretty short period of time, the conversation just started to shift to him sharing his frustration with just world events, the state of affairs, and just how things had just gotten so out of control and so violent. And it didn't matter where you looked. Everything on TV was about conflict. Everything was, again, violence, disputes, never any good news, always just problems. And he was just describing how tired he was of that, and just wanting to be able to just get up, go about doing his business, and just living peacefully, if you will. And as I was listening to him, and again looking at him in his get up, if you will, was how everything that he was projecting on his outer display, if you will, was really a misguided set of inputs for me to be making certain assumptions that through our daily activities and through our daily exposure to different types of information, again, different media and all kinds of inputs that bombard us daily, were totally off the mark with who this man really was. And I think importantly, it was also just a wake up for recognizing that for all of the challenges and all of the struggles that everybody faces in trying to sort this out, is that there's always this common denominator of common concerns, and just a common desire to live together, to go about one's business, and just not constantly be at each other's throats or in conflict. So why bring this up as an example? Well, if you start to look at how we, again, just take in things around us, whether it's a person, whether it's a situation, whether it's, a particular activity, whatever it is, we are always putting our interpretation on top of a set of facts, information, facts, fiction, worldview assumptions that are just not correct. They're not completely correct, but we think they are. And so we start to shape everything around us in an image that makes sense, or that, clearly is a misalignment with how we view the world. And then, we either are drawn to it if it aligns, or we, start to get angry, fearful, conflicted when it isn't. And I think this example, and if you start to just look at how we interact in general, is we immediately put things in boxes, right? We don't allow what we're looking at to actually be seen, and we don't allow anybody or anything to be open to change. And so, the result is, I think that one way, the next person thinks another way, because we're so caught in how we see things and thinking that we're correct, or that the other person is incorrect. We immediately create a scenario where there's division, and where, for whatever reason, we feel like maybe we have to defend our position or take a stand. And we forget that, maybe underneath all of this, there is common ground. And we don't create the opening to actually just look and say, what actually is driving what we're so concerned about, and, what these points of view are. So, when you're problem solving, these are conflict problems, and, we have problems in our daily lives, but when you're actually trying to fix some kind of a systems issue at work, or, anywhere, if you can't actually, as a group or as a team, start to look at each other and be curious, and to be open, and to not immediately make assumptions be the driver, and let the judgments and opinions hold fast, you never really get anywhere as far as what the opportunities are for improvement or for change. And then we get caught. So, again, think about this, it's all in a word. You just have to say one word, and this is not about being correct politics or incorrect politics, or, you can apply it to religion. You can apply these labels and these attitudes to pretty much anything that is going on. We have them everywhere. So as you go about your day today, look around at what you're doing. Be aware of how you meet people, or you see people you like, people you may be, not necessarily dislike, but you're just sort of distant from, and watch yourself as far as what's going on behind the scenes. You may see something. So that's it for today. Next time we'll find another topic. I think we're still on learning to look. And I hope you have a great day today. I'm Rick. This is Inwyt Walkabout, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.